have discussed in the morning about deep learning for medical applications, and now we are moving towards image reconstruction using deep learning. So to conduct this session, we have with us Dr. Manish Bhatt. Dr. Manish Bhatt has completed his PhD in biomedical image reconstruction from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore in 2017. He was a postdoctoral fellow at University of Montreal, Canada, and Johns Hopkins University, United States between 2017 to 20, where he was working toward developing imaging algorithms for fatty liver and breast cancer screening. He is currently a consultant at Shell Technology Center, Bangalore, in collaboration with IISc Bangalore for rock image reconstruction in petrology. He has published in several international journal and conference papers. His research interests include medical image reconstruction, ultrasound imaging, deep learning, and solving inverse problem in biomedical imaging. So I welcome you, sir, and over to you, sir. You need to unmute, sir.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for this welcome. And it seems like a very good training program, which have included several topics from imaging and deep learning. So I am going to start with sharing my screen. I'm currently working at Cell Technology Center, Bangalore, along with IISc collaboration. I'm a consultant in Cell Technology Center, and I have extensive experience in image reconstruction, image processing, and deep learning methods. Image reconstruction is an advanced topic, usually not taught at undergraduate level, and even in graduate school, very few courses cover this part. But it is one of the basic imaging operation, because all images starting from camera photography to biomedical imaging or computer vision applications. The first step is image reconstruction, creating an image. So what is an image reconstruction? You could take an analogy of an inspector going to a crime scene and trying to find out what happened there. So an inspector goes to a crime scene. Let's say there was a robbery happened there. He would go try to find out fingerprints, any other CCTV footage, or any other proofs that the thieves might have left behind. Then he combines all the proofs that were there, and he reconstructs the crime scene and then try to find out what happened during the robbery. Similarly, image reconstruction is a similar problem. We have the data of what happened. For example, when camera is taking a photo, the light has been detected by detectors, and then the camera takes the data and reconstructs the image. More often than not, it's an inverse problem, and modern technology, modern camera technology, and modern biomedical imaging technology, they refer to iterative algorithms to perform image reconstruction, and then 2D or 3D images in certain imaging techniques can be reconstructed. So one of the first theorem that we need to understand before going through for further image reconstruction is how images are traditionally reconstructed. And this is called Fourier slice theorem. It is one of the basic theorems that we learn at graduate school, and it explains that the reconstruction of the object from the projection data, how it can be done. Projection data is the data that our detectors detect. For example, in cameras, the optical detectors. In biomedical systems, it can be acoustic detectors. In petrology, it can be ultrasound detectors. Similarly, and the theorem states that by taking the one-dimensional Fourier transform of the parallel projections and then equating them to the slices of the two-dimensional Fourier transform of the object can give us the reconstruction of an image. And the projection data can estimate the object using two-dimensional inverse Fourier transform. What it means is that if there is a point xy and if the coordinate system is rotated by an angle theta, then the FFT of the projection is equal to the two-dimensional Fourier transform of the object slice along the rotated line theta. Thus, the Fourier slice theorem states that the Fourier transform of parallel projection of an image fxy taken at an angle theta gives a slice of the 2D transform subtending an angle theta with the u-axis. In other words, you can say if your one-dimensional Fourier transform is f1 and the projections are p1, and if your two-dimensional Fourier transform is f2 and the slices along are s1, then f1 p1 equal to s1 f2. So you have to first take the projection and then one-dimensional Fourier transform and equate it to taking the two-dimensional Fourier transform and then taking the slices of that function fxy. So what it means? Image reconstruction is simple and can be explained intuitively considering an example. For example, we have an image which has a dark region background and a white circle in the center that we want to reconstruct. When we want to take a photograph of such an image, we process a beam through this region, and these beams are detected by an absorption profile through a detector strip, as you can see in the first image. Once we have the data detected by the detector strip, we can do the further programming to make a back projection of this data, which means that whatever data we have to back project it in the reverse direction, in the inverse direction. So when we inverse that data from the other side, we will get a straight white line as seen in the image B. So if we want to reconstruct the circular object, we can rotate this beam throughout the 360 degree, and then summing all those images can give us the image. For example, in C image, the beam is now going from down to the upward, and then in the next image, the back projection is done from upward towards the downside. And finally, the image B and image D is summed, and you can get a circular object reconstructed. So from the last figure that we see here, we can identify the object whose amplitude is twice that of individual back projection. Twice because two projections are summed. As the number of projections increases, the strength of non-intersecting back projections would decrease. And this would relatively increase the strength of regions in which multiple back projections intersect. Net result, the brighter region will dominate the result, and back projections with few or no intersections will fade into the background. What it means? Let's see by an example. The first image is a circular object which we want to reconstruct. So second image is its back projection from left to right. Third image is the back projection in a diagonal direction. Then in the next image, in the bottom row, first image, there is 3 back projections. In the next image, there are 2 diagonal, 1 horizontal and 1 vertical, total 4 back projections. So as you can see, the number of back projections are increasing. The central area, the brightness of the central area is increasing also. This is becoming dominating. So once you have, let's say 100 back projections and then summed all together, you may get a final image as seen in the last image in the bottom row. But this is a blurred image. So to remove this blurring, you can use a filter, and then it would be called a filtered back projection. So let us understand this by considering one popular imaging modality, let's say CT, computed tomography, which is a one popular imaging application, medical imaging. CT can be done apart from medical imaging. It has far wider uses, from sea, inside the sea, where it can be used to do deep sea imaging, in rock imaging, and even in metallurgical applications in industry. But we are looking for medical imaging applications. So in this section, I will start with X-ray computed tomography, quickly take you through the physics and acquisition, and then I'll tell you how the analytical and linear reconstruction techniques are performed, which are the basic methods. Then current state of the art method, which are the iterative reconstruction methods, and then deep learning models, which looks like the future of image reconstruction. So computed tomography was first discovered in 1917 by John Radon. He was a mathematician from Vienna, Austria, and he derived a method for projecting a 2D object along parallel rays as part of his work on line integrals. This method is currently today known as radon transform. 45 years later, Alan Cormack, a physicist at Tufts University in Netherlands, rediscovered this concept and applied it to computed tomography. And then Hounsfield and his colleagues in London built first medical CT machine. Later, Hounsfield won a Nobel Prize. What they did is simply a back projection algorithm, which changed the lives of many patients in and created several applications in medical imaging. So medical imaging involves visualization of lesions or disease. The steps include radiological interpretation, ruling out or ruling in a diagnosis whether there is a breast cancer happening or not happening, and then defining diagnostic tree, 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, in which stage the disease has reached. So medical imaging has three sections. One is scanners, where data is collected. Second is computers, where someone processes the data. And third is users, where doctors or radiologists are the users. We electrical engineers or computer engineers, we work at the second section, computers. We process the data, collect from scanners, create an image and give it to the doctors. That is what we want to achieve through image reconstruction algorithms. Medical imaging has evolved in the last few decades a lot. In 70s, there were 2D, X-ray, radiography, or nuclear imaging. Then the recent techniques are in 3 dimensions, where CT, MRI, PET, which is positron emission tomography, are the popular methods. The new methods, these imaging techniques were in 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, and then the new modalities started coming, which were 4D. They involve dynamic CT, MRI, dynamic MRI, or dynamic ultrasound. And for the future, we are looking at horizon of 5D, which is 4D plus functional. Functional means finding out the function of the body part. Let us say you are doing functional imaging of a brain, and then you want to check out during a fMRI, during a functional MRI, how patient responds to different tasks that are given to him. For example, several images can be shown to him, from an image of a cat, dog, to an image of a fruit or his favorite dish, and which part of the brain lights up seeing each image. This is called functional imaging, and the applications are to understand the neurological concepts that is happening inside human brain. Some of the major advances, and also these are also the challenges of our imaging community, is to create faster algorithms, take the imaging techniques farther, and performing, for example, by performing whole body imaging in less than 20 seconds. That is one of our goals, and that is also one of our greatest challenge. Then doing functional imaging, it can be done using PET, SPECT, optical, or MRS. and then doing fusion, which is anatomical imaging plus functional imaging, and it can be done performing two different imaging methods together. What it means is requirement of processing the huge amount of data that we have in short time for medical image reconstruction. We want to do it in real time so that a lot of the patients can be screened in a day. For example, MRI, if it is taking 30 minutes for one patient at max, you can, if your hospital runs from 9 to 5, you can do 16 or 17 patients in a day. That is very less. So as an imaging engineers or imaging researchers, our goal is to increase the run time, in the make it shorter, improve our algorithm, make them faster, and take our technology farther by making a goal that whole body imaging can be performed within 20 seconds. So medical imaging has several steps. The first step is to introduce some form of radiation. For example, in X-ray imaging, you introduce X-rays inside the body. Similarly, in MRI, it can be electromagnetic. In ultrasound, it can be acoustic radiation. Then observe the interaction of this radiation with tissue. In X-rays, how X-rays are interacting with the tissue and then creating an image. This interaction can be attenuation of the electromagnetic wave, scattering, reflection, or even concentration. And then whatever we observe through this tissue interaction, we convert these observations into a clinically meaningful image. And this image can be developed into a film, or this image can be seen in a computer. So all of you must have seen this famous image. It got the Roentgen Nobel Prize in 1902, and he created the X-ray image of his wife's finger by projecting X-rays on her hand. The physical principle of this is variation in X-ray attenuation happens through different tissues. Bones attenuates more and soft tissues attenuates lesser. And then a beam of X-ray can be directed through a patient onto a film, and the final output is an image where a shadow of the patient can be seen. A radiography system is huge. Generally, it involves several components. There is an X-ray tube and housing. There is a collimator which sends X-rays to the patient. The patient is usually lying on a table, and on the other side there is a chamber where detection can happen. So such projection radiography have multiple applications in biomedical community. Some of the examples include chest X-ray. First image, as you can see, a breast mammogram, where the application is to find out if there is any tissue present inside the breast so that cancer screening can be done. Or even an angiogram of blood vessels, where you can see smaller, very fine and small blood vessels, and these applications are to check whether any blood clot is forming inside blood veins, which can result in many fatal incidents, including heart attacks. So images that are formed using mathematical methods and computers from indirect measurements of the interaction between radiation and tissues are called computate methods. These methods can be either analytical or iterative. Analytical methods are the older methods. They are not used anymore, but they are the basic methods. Iterative methods are built on analytical methods. They are the current state-of-the-art techniques, and most clinical systems in the hospitals today use iterative techniques. They can be algebraic or statistical, and all these methods work on the principles of Radon transform for CT applications. This Radon transform can be something else. For example, in MRI, it can be Fourier transform. So in computed tomography, image reconstruction is done in several steps, and the data collection step is called sinogram. So For example, you have a circular object, you are sending beam from down to upward size, and whatever data you are collecting, the data set that you can visualize is called a sinogram, and it is simply a straight line, as you can see. Then if you move your object towards the right, the sinogram also moves towards the right. If you rotate your object in some directions, you can also see some changes in the phase. Similarly, you can take the back projections from multiple directions and there would be some changes in sinograms. And finally, the visualization of raw data looks like a DNA structure. And this is the step where we start reconstruction. Once we get the raw data, we see it like this, and we want to create an image from this raw data. So most of these basic concepts and principles are mentioned in the book, The Essential Physics of Medical Imaging. It is a very popular book, and across the world, even in the universities in the US, this book is the reference book. Everybody wants to read this book. So please note it down if you want to refer it to your students. It is written by Bushberg and published by Wilkins Publishers in Philadelphia. So let us start with the basic steps of image reconstruction. I will divide it in 3 parts. The first is analytical, which are old school. Second is iterative, which is the modern methods. And then third is deep learning, which is the future. Tomography is about reconstructing 3D volumes using 2-dimensional data, 2-dimensional sinograms that I just showed you. These sinograms represents projection data arranged as a function of angles. And these reconstruction techniques are divided into analytical or iterative types. So the reconstruction is done on the basis of how the radiation is interacting with the tissue. For example, if it is an X-ray CT tomography, we want to see how X-rays are interacting with the soft tissues present in the body. These X-rays goes through attenuation when they pass through our body. Soft tissues attenuate them less, and harder tissues or bones attenuates them more. What attenuates means is their intensity is decreasing, and this attenuation happens through a exponential function. For example, if I0 is the initial intensity of the X-ray at the source, and the absorption coefficient of the soft tissue is mu, and the path of the travel is r, then at a point xy, the new intensity Ixy can be written as I equal to I0 exponential minus mu L, where Ixy is the intensity detected at position xy. Similarly, we can detect the intensity at each position in this region of interest, and this is called projection data, and from this projection data we can reconstruct our image. So if the beam passes through tissue components having different absorption coefficient, and then assuming the tissue is divided into equal sections delta r, this equation becomes I is equal to I0 exponential minus sigma mu xy delta L. What it means is that we can collect these projections and convert them through radon transform to create an image. Let us see what is projections and the radon transform quickly, just to give you the basic concepts behind the mathematics. If you have an arbitrary point in the projection signal is given by the ray sum along the line x cos theta k plus y sin theta k equal to rho j. Ray sum means summing all the back projection that you have. The ray sum can be given by a line integral, and it can be written as a double integration minus infinity to infinity, which means summing through in all the directions fxy delta x cos theta plus y sin theta k minus rho j in along the lines that you have dx dy. And if all the values of rho and theta are considered, the above equations can become, so this is just at the point j and k, and if all the values are there, then you can simply sum it from in dx and dy direction from minus infinity to infinity, and you will have a function g, rho and theta, which would be your projection data. In discrete domain, this can become as sigma x equal to 0 to n minus 1, sigma y equal to 0 to n minus 1, fxy delta x cos theta plus y sin theta minus rho. This is the line, and where x, y, rho and theta are discrete variables. So when the radon transform g, rho, theta is displayed as an image with rho and theta as rectilinear coordinates, the result is called a sinogram, like Fourier transform. However, g, rho, theta is always a real function, and like Fourier transform, this sinogram contains data necessary to reconstruct the image fxy. So the key objective of the CT is to obtain a 3D representation of a volume from its projections. The approach is to back project each projection and then sum all the back projections to generate one image. And stacking all the resulting images produces a 3D rendition of the volume. To obtain a formal expression for a back projected image from the radon transform, we can begin with a single point g, rho j, rho I, theta k of the complete projection for a fixed value of rotation theta k. So in general, the image formed from a single back projections obtained an angle theta can be given by a function f theta xy, which is a function of g x cos theta plus y sin theta, the line and the angle theta. And the final image can be formed by integrating it from 0 to pi, which means across all the 180-degree angles. And in discrete case, this would become a summation from theta equal to 0 to pi f theta xy, and you would get a reconstructed image fxy. What it means is, let us see from this image. You have an object, a circular object in the middle. You back project it from 4 directions and sum all the 4 rays, and the first image you can see is the reconstructed image. So in the center, the object is reconstructed, and other lines around the background are just noise. If you have 16 projections, the reconstruction, as you can see, the object is becoming better, more bright compared to the background. And when you move towards 128 back projections, the last image in the first row, it seems like you have reconstructed the object very well, but there is still blurring effect, and you want to remove this. So we implement a technique called filter back projections, where we want to filter out this noise. So when we do a filter back projection, you can see the bottom row, and when you have enough number of projections, let's say 128 projections, and you have filtered it, so you can get the last image, which is very similar to what you wanted to reconstruct. So to summarize, there are 2 steps. First, you back project, and then you sum them, and then you filter them. That's all, and you can reconstruct your image. So this reconstruction is performed using parallel beam filter back projections, and obtaining back projections can yield blurred results, as you have seen here in the first row. So a straightforward solution to this problem is filtering the projections before computing the back projections. And this can be done using a 2D inverse Fourier transform of FUV, which you know that the 2D, it can be written as double integration minus infinity to infinity FUV exponential j2 pi ux plus v by du dv. And then if you take u equal to omega cos theta and v equal to omega sin theta, you can express it in the polar coordinates, which would give the limits from integration 0 to 2 pi for d omega, and integration 0 to infinity, integration 0 to 2 pi for d theta, and integration 0 to infinity for d omega for all the frequencies. Then using a Fourier slice theorem, which was f1 p1 equal to s1 f2. First you take p1 projections, f1 one-dimensional Fourier transform. So f1 p1 becomes equal to s1 f2. You take a 2-dimensional Fourier transform f2 and then slice it s1. So this is what they are doing here, and splitting the integral into two expressions for theta, let's say in the range 0 to 180 degree, and then in the second time 180 to 360 degree, and using the fact that g omega theta plus 180 is same as g minus omega theta t, you can get an equation for fxy integration 0 to pi minus integration minus infinity to infinity, and then you can, in the term with respect to omega, the term x cos theta plus y sin theta can be replaced with rho. And finally, your image looks like fxy equal to integration 0 to pi omega g omega theta ej to pi omega rho d omega, as if it is the Fourier transform. Once you have this, you can reconstruct parallel beams through filtered back projection, and the term inside the bracket is here inverse Fourier transform of the product of two frequency domains. So you can write them as a convolution function, and then through a filter you can create a filtered back projection image. So how is the algorithm of filtered back projections? You take a Fourier transform of the projection, filter them, and then take inverse Fourier transform and back project the filtered back projection and linearly add them and repeat it for each slice, and you would get your image. So let us see how in MATLAB you can implement it yourself. In MATLAB, for CT reconstruction, it is very simple. MATLAB implementation of the radon transform can be done using an inbuilt function in the MATLAB. It is called radon, and you have to give I, which is the input intensity, and theta, the angles that you are taking back projections at. And if you don't know what is your theta, you can set the default from 0 to 179. That is at each angle in 180 degree direction. So if you want to image a square, as you are seeing here, you can, where in the middle there is zeros, and around it there is some 1 pixel, 0 and 1 pixel. So it's a very simple image. And then you give theta is equal to 0 to 180 degree. So to create a forward back projection data, you can simply write radon I theta. And then if you want to visualize this back projection, this forward projection, you can write imshow, which shows the image theta xpri. And then the first image on the right side you see is the forward projected data. This is the raw data that you want to reconstruct. Similarly, if you have a different kind of phantom, you can just input this phantom as an image, and here they have taken P as this phantom. Then radon P comma theta will give you the forward projected data, which is the raw data, as you can see on the right side. What it means is that if you want to create simulations for your own research and you have a set of images and you want to create the simulated CT data for such images, you just need to give the image as an input I, and you have to define theta, how many detectors you are placing. So for example, if you are placing 180 detectors at each 1 degree interval, then you can simply define them from 0 to 179. And this simple one line command radon I theta will give you the forward projected data. And then how you do the inverse radon transform. So in CT, we take inverse radon transform. In MRI, radon transform is Fourier transform, and we take Fourier transform and inverse Fourier transform. I'm sorry. So to take inverse radon transform in MATLAB, the image, the inbuilt function is called iRadon, and you have the projected data P and your theta, the set of angles, and you can write I equal to iRadon P comma theta, and this would give you. So for example, the first image would reconstruct back the original image, and the second is the reconstruction of the original phantom. To make it more accurate, they have implemented a filter, and which is defined by D. So here you can see, and then interpolated the image. So interp is the interpolation function. So using these simple function iRadon, you can create the image. What it means is that what is happening in iRadon function is there are back projections taking from all the 180-degree angles. As you can see here, there is 8, 15, and 30 angle back projection, and finally the image is being reconstructed at the end of it, and when you sum them together. So in image reconstruction, there are several noises involved, especially if you are doing an industrial application. For example, in biomedical imaging, you are making ultrasound scans, and the measurement system can introduce several noise into it. So to model these noise into your simulations, you can use several PDFs. One of them is like Gaussian noise or Rayleigh noise. Gaussian noise is used in spatial and frequency domain, and Rayleigh noise are also used in more like in optical methods, for example, optical coherence tomography or photoacoustics. So these are the functions that you can write in the MATLAB and model them according to your choice. Similarly, if you want to introduce uniform noise or even impulse noise, you can define the PDFs of these uniform noise. For example, it is here defined as BZ equal to 1B minus A if it is G is from A to B and 0 otherwise. So how this effect of noise happens in the projection data? The first row shows the raw data, the forward projected data, and the bottom row shows the reconstructed data. As you see, the Gaussian noise is introduced here more and more. So when you go toward right, even the forward projected data, you can see several ... which is the noise level has been increased, and the effect you can see in the reconstruction. So we often have noise levels up to 20 dB or even 40 dB in our system, and our aim is to reduce these noise. So we can implement noise reduction models to remove this noise and reconstruct the images without such noise. This noise problem can be solved by improving the number of data scans that you have taken, that is increasing number of rays, increase resolution, and increasing number of views, increase resolution too. So if you are doing a CT and let's say you are projecting 100 X-rays into some scans, some body scan, you can increase from 100 to 500, and this would increase your resolution. However, you also need to consider the safety limits. So that is a challenge. And similarly, you can increase the number of views. For example, you are seeing it from 100 angles. You can increase the number of angles from 100 to 200, and it would improve the resolution. But again, it would expose more radiation to the patient, and that the safety limit may be crossed. So it comes with a compromise. Either you improve the resolution or you lose at the safety limit. But whatever images we reconstruct from our back projection algorithms or even any other algorithms, we need to find out whether we have created good images or not. And for example, there could be two popular figure of merits we can use. One is mean square error and another is signal to noise ratio. We often use SNR as a quality of the image, reconstruction image. Especially in medical imaging, if SNR is higher, it is very beneficial to radiologists and doctors, as they can see clearly what is happening inside any tissue. So we have seen analytical reconstruction till now, and the advantages include well-known. First, they work on the well-known properties such as optical scattering, optical attenuation, ultrasound attenuation. They are easy to implement. The MATLAB line code is just 2 lines, and they can do the reconstruction very fast. It takes less than 2-3 minutes to perform this reconstruction. However, there are several disadvantages. The limitation imposed by the approximations implicit in the line integral model onto which the formulations are based, and it is not possible to model the detection and acquisition process. Third, the noise is controlled at the expense of resolution and varying the cutoff frequency of a filter applied to the sonograms. Discretization is a contingent. So before we go on to a break, I would like to show you some implementation of how to perform image reconstruction in MATLAB, and then we would like go forward from there. So I would like to share my screen in MATLAB. I hope you are able to see my MATLAB now. So let us start with the simulations. Okay, we want to create a simulation of a X-ray, and then we want to see how the raw data looks and how we can reconstruct a raw data. So I have downloaded this data set from MATLAB website, official MATLAB website. It is called CBCT Toolbox, and you can download the CBCT Toolbox yourself too. And there is one data set involved. So I will just show you this data set. So this is called IMG. I'm going to load it, and let us see how this image look like. So I'm just going to show you how this image looks. So this is the phantom image. As you can see, it is a CT example, and this is how our raw data looks, and we want to use this phantom. Phantom means a simulation example. So we want to use this phantom to create first a raw data, and then again to reconstruct the reconstruct the image again. So let me go back to sharing my screen in my. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create the parameters of our system. So here I am defining the param as parameters, and what is the size of our image. So it is a 3D image. So in NX, NY, and NG, XYZ directions, there are 128, 128, 128 voxels present. Then what is the size of the image in millimeters? So from SX, SY, SG in XYZ directions, I have defined it, let it be 460 millimeter in each direction. Then I have defined the size of the detectors, real detectors, panel pixel density by NU and NV in X and Y directions. So 256 number of pixels and in one direction, and 200 the total size. Then I also define the size in millimeters. So SU and SV, size in U and size in V is 1000 millimeter and 800 millimeter. Then I define the X-ray source and detector setting. So see how many things we have to define. We have to define how the detector size looks like. This is the real detector pixel density. Then we define the source. This is distance source to detector and source to object distance. How far is object from source, and which is at 1100 millimeter, and how far is source to distance source to detector, which is at 1500 millimeter. Then we define how many projections we want to perform. So we want to, this is called angle setting. We are defining it, rotation direction is -1, which means counterclockwise. If you want to do it clockwise, you can write 1. There is angular step size, like we want to do it at each 1 degree angle, 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, and the degrees are from 0 to 210. So we are taking 210 scans. Then you can compute the total number of projections. So this turned out to be how many projections we are taking. 211 projections we are taking. Then for filtered back projection, we can use any filters, so like Ramlak, cosine, Hamming, hand. So we have taken Ramlak filter here. You can define the resolution by dividing size in millimeters from the numbers. So this is the resolution in dx, dy, dz, and du and dv for detector. And then you can calculate the geometry calculation, how the where these locations are, where these pixel locations are in xy coordinates. And then we can perform finally an interpolation to make image looks more smoother. So simply I have defined all the parameters. I have run this code and the param parameter now shows you these things. So what is nx, ny, and g, which is the object size. Sx, sy, sg is the object size in millimeter. DSD is the source to detector distance. Similarly, we have defined all the thing. Interrupt type is linear. We want to implement linear interpolation, and GPU is whether you are running it is in GPU or CPU. So I'm just using a CPU. So GPU is 0. We often need to run it in GPU because our data is huge, but it is a smaller size. Okay, yeah. So to generate the data, the first step is to, I am loading an ground truth image IMG, which I have already loaded here. Then do we want to introduce noise? Let us say we want to introduce noise in our simulations. And then we can perform the forward projections using function CT projection. So this is a function that I will show you. And this function projects the data from image domain to sinogram domain, and you have to give input, 2 inputs, IMG, which was the phantom image that I showed you in the beginning, and your parameter settings, and that's it. And then we can define the noise characteristics too. So let us wait for it to run. It takes about 1 minute here. So here we are defining, if you want to implement noise in your simulations, if noise is on, you can define a Poisson function with I naught equal to 10,000. If I naught is higher, there would be smaller noise, and if it is smaller I naught, the noise would be higher. And then I am doing it in log scale because I performed exponential first. Otherwise, you can define how, you can also use Gaussian function or any other noise function. Once it is done, I will just save the projection data, proj. It is the projection data, forward projection data, and use, this is the sinogram data. And using this sinogram data, then I will show you how to reconstruct back the image. So let us wait for this simulation to run. It should be 1 minute possibly. Okay, it is done. So it took 106 seconds. And let me show you how this data set looks like. So I cannot run the whole 3D because I would not be able to show you. So this is the data set that it looks like, the projected data set. Now, if I showed you the whole image, yeah, now you can see the 3D version of it. So on the top of it, you can see degrees. We have defined it 210 degrees. So this is the projected data, as you can see. It's gonna go from 1 to 210 degree. And this is the raw data. We want to reconstruct image from this raw data. We want to create an image of the brain from this raw data. So once this is complete, I will show you how to reconstruct image from this raw data. So see, now it is stopped. I have shown you all the 210 projections. Now let us go to reconstructing this. So to reconstruct, I am starting with analytic reconstruction, which is the first step of reconstruction, the old school method. Since I am going to do a filtered back projection, so I am first defining filter. Let us say I am going to use Hahn filter. Then then you can load the projection data. So I have already loaded it here. And then I am passing this projected data through the filter. So I use the filtering algorithm and it is done. And then recon image is the reconstruction of the image using a CT back projection algorithm. So I'll just show you how this back projection algorithm looks like. But let me first run this recon image. So it's gonna take some time. Let us wait how much time it takes. Meanwhile, let's look at the back projection algorithm. So this is the CT back projection algorithm. It works here, image plus back projection. This is where all the summing is happening. So I told you there are 3 steps. One is one back projection, then summing all the back projection, and third step is filtering. So this is the summing step. Here I am summing all the back projections. So now it took 200 seconds. Now it is done. And this is the back projection for each back projection. So you define an angle and you define the volume. So this function is already inbuilt in MATLAB. Then you define the Rx and Ry, where the rays are coming through along the line x cos theta plus y sin theta. This is in the form x cos theta plus y sin theta, Rx and Ry. And then if your GPU is on, you define some GPU characteristics, but it is not the case here. So back projection algorithm is already inbuilt here. And let us see, this is run. The run has been completed. So let us see what image we reconstructed. This was a 3D image. So let me run this part. So here now you can see the 3D reconstruction of the image. So this was a brain phantom, and you can see how it looks like. It was a computer simulation run. So toward the ending slices 128 and 127, there are often measurement noises. This is why it looks like this. So I'm going to run it once again. Okay. So this is how we perform our normal reconstruction. We can also see one single image using this, the image SC function. The recon image is the reconstructed image here. So let us see this. And this is 128 by 128 by 128 in X, Y, and G direction. So I'm just going to, in G direction, it is the number of slices. So this is, let's say 100 slices. Color map, let's say gray. And let's also say color bar. So this is how the image looks. The color bar also can be seen. You can change the color map from here, something other, and simply. So this, for example, this color map looks much better, and it may help radiologists to look better what is happening inside. So this was an example to analytical reconstruction. This is called a CBCT toolbox. Here it is called CBCT, and it is available in download, available for download in MATLAB. So let's just see if there is a README file. Okay, the link is not here. I will share you the link of this. So let me go back to our slides. So let us go for a quick 5-minute break to drink some water, and after this we will see iterative reconstruction and the implementation of iterative reconstruction, and I will then take you for the deep learning, towards the deep learning side. And meanwhile I'll also share the toolbox link. So see you at 12. Okay, so let us start from iterative reconstructions now. Till now we have seen back projection, which was analytical reconstruction, and it was the first step in the reconstruction research. And for years people were just doing back projection reconstruction, but the modern system work on iterative reconstruction. The current clinical system work on iterative reconstruction, and after iterative reconstruction I will take you towards the deep learning method, which are the future of image reconstruction. So in iterative reconstruction, as the name suggests, there is an iterative procedure, which means we run the reconstruction through a for loop for multiple numbers. So if we start with in image space, we start with an estimation, an initial guess. We project it to create an estimated projection. Then we compare the estimated projection from the experimental data or from a measured projection. This comparison can either be done by subtracting in both the projection, or by dividing it. Then we compute the error in the projection, and then we back project using the previously shown algorithm. We compute the error is the imaging, and then we update it in the next estimate. So once for example, this is the scenario in iteration 1. Now this is the scenario in iteration 2. Once we have updated, our current estimate looks slightly better than what we have thought it to be, with what was our initial projection. Then we run it again through the same loop, and then we see this is the after n iterations. After n iterations, how our image looks. So now it has improved much better. We have an current estimate shows a clearer image. The estimated projection has also improved compared to what it was in the previous iteration. So running the whole algorithm, and this, as you can see, this whole system depends on the back projection algorithm. So running the whole system in an iterative fashion is called iterative reconstruction. It requires more time because you are running each step again and again, let us say 100 iterations. So it requires more time, but it gives you more accurate estimates. So to summarize, the main steps are: first, to make a first arbitrary estimate of the slice, then project the estimated slice into projections analogous to those measured by the camera. Compare these projections either through dividing or subtracting. Then you decide whether you want to stop or continue based on what is the error you are getting. So this is a small algorithm for iterative algorithm. For example, if your estimate is f hat, you forward project it to all projections. Then you compare it using a dividing method here, then back project these ratios. and then upgrade image and continue this iteration for n time. The advantages of iterative reconstruction is that they can accurately model the image formation process, and they allow use of constraints and a priori information. And the corrections can include the reconstruction process. The disadvantages are that they are slow and they are less predictive behavior. So to summarize, iterative techniques are slower compared to analytical techniques, and these techniques allow modeling of system noise, imaging physics, and can include the corrections. It was very short in explanation because these techniques work on the same principles of back projections, which is the backbone of the whole image reconstruction. Now let me show you how an iterative algorithm can work. So I will start sharing my MATLAB screen again. Okay. So we can start with loading the image that we want to use. So this looks like this is the target data. That is how we want to achieve. This is the image that we want to reconstruct, and we already have created its forward projected data in the previous exercise. So this is the PROJ is the forward project data. Now we are going to use an iterative reconstruction technique called MLEM, which is maximum likelihood estimation method. So first we load the projection data, the forward projected data, the raw data or the sinogram. Then we define that we don't want to do any filtration in this technique. Then we take and estimate the initial guess. So our initial guess, okay, we forgot to load the param models. So our initial guess is a very simple image with just ones around it. What it means is I will just show you what is my initial guess. So this image that you are currently seeing in figure 2 is the what we want to reconstruct, but what I am starting from is from this blank image. I'm starting from a blank image, and then I will run 5 iterations to see how much time it is going to take to run the whole algorithm and what is the accuracy it is going to give me. So I am starting from this blank image, that is my initial guess, and I am running it for 5 iterations. So let us see how much time it will take. I think it will take 1 minute for each iteration. So there are 5 iterations. So meanwhile, I'll show you what I am doing in this algorithm. So the first step is to proj is our experimental projections that we have, and CT projection is the function that creates the numerical projections. This can be performed by giving the image IMG and parameter setting. So this IMG is the blank image that you are seeing in the figure 2. So, and this division is the comparison step. Like I told you, the comparison can be done either by dividing or by subtracting. So in this method, we do it by dividing. So we define this. If there is any non-number, we set them to 0. If there are any infinite value, we set them to 0. And then we also do the same comparison in imaging domain. This was in the projection domain, proj, and this was in the imaging domain. So we divide the estimated image from the numerical image, normalized image. This is for the comparison. And if there are any non-values, you can set them to 0. And if there are any infinite values, you can set them to 0. And once you have completed this, both projections, okay, the algorithm stopped. So we forgot to define this. Okay. So once you have completed both the comparison in imaging domain and in projection domain, then you can define the image as whatever is the maximum of image or image ratio, and then you can see this image. So what you got after the, let us see what you got after the first estimate. So after iteration 1, we have got nothing. Basically, it is still a blank image. So I am going to run it for next iterations now. So what it means here is what I was doing here. So this was my forward projected data, sigma HF, and I was comparing it using a division function, and then back projecting all the functions back to voxels and creating the image. And this iteration I'm gonna run for 5 times. So creating the projections, dividing for comparison, and then back projecting, and then updating. So let me go back again to MATLAB. So here, dividing for comparison in image domain, which is also back projection, and then updating the image here, and then waiting for the iteration to complete, and then run this iteration 5 times. So we started running it from 1 to 5. So this is the CT back projection function where we are summing all the back projections. And this is the CT projection function, forward projection function, where we are creating the projection. So let us wait for it to run. And meanwhile, I can start giving you some introduction about deep learning image reconstructions. So as we say, deep learning images, we say, are the future of image reconstruction. And I have just shared one YouTube video that I would like you to watch. I hope it is opening. Yes, it is opening. So this is the video created by Z. They created thousands of ground truth images. They trained it through a deep neural network and to reconstruct deep learning image. So you can see it yourself. So as you can see, deep neural network also work on back propagation or back projection. So that is the backbone of the whole reconstruction. So our two iterations are complete. So I'm still waiting for two more iterations. So now you can see at iteration 3, there is an image that has started to reconstruct. It is still not very bad compared to what we want to reconstruct, but we started from here. We started from a blank image, and now we have this image. We have some image formation starting, and it is iteration 3. So I'm just going to run 5 iterations to show where this algorithm will take us. So this is iteration 4. This is also complete now. We can see some dark structures inside the whole white background. It is with each update, it is becoming more and more accurate. But as I told you, one of the disadvantages of iterative reconstruction is that it is slow. While back projection algorithm was very fast, we could do it only in one step. Iterative reconstruction takes time, and each iteration is taking 1 minute, more than 1 minute, 118 seconds to almost 2 minutes. So overall, this is the limitations of iterative algorithms. So you have seen it, and we can, I guess, because time is also limiting, we can go more to our deep learning algorithms. So currently, more than 106 startups are working toward transforming healthcare with AI. This is just in one city in US, probably in California, I think, and they are working from patient data and risk analytics to medical imaging and diagnostics to drug discovery. So deep learning, as you already know, it's combined of AI neural networks composed of many layers, and they learn like humans. They work on automated feature learning, and layers are like image filters. So medical imaging models are pre-trained networks that have transfer learning capabilities. Some of the popular models are UNet, VNet, or ENet, and they implement FCN, fully convolutional net with skip connections and with multi-streams, CNNs, convolutional neural networks. And TINET, dense CNN encoder, and RNN decoders are some multi-level classification methods. So this is an example of a UNet network, which is the most popular network in medical imaging. Deep learning for medical imaging reconstructions involve creating deep neural networks that are now proven to be powerful tools to represent complex data. They are proven to be more robust and accurate than human radiologists. And one such network is ResNet. This residual network, ResNet, is one of the most popular DNNs. The architecture is shown here, which can also be formulated mathematically as UK plus 1 equal to UK plus FK UK. So I'm going to show you some of the popular networks that we use in deep learning. And then if you have any questions, you can write it down in the chat box. Autoencoder is another popular neural network. It used to learn data representation in an unsupervised manner, and it aims to learn an encoder from a set of data together with a decoder. And in this, we do not lose any essential information during the encoding and decoding process. Then UNet. It is the most popular network. It was proposed for biomedical image segmentation first, which is by far one of the most successful deep image segmentation models. And it resembles the encoder-decoder architecture of autoencoder if we view the left half of the UNet as an encoder and the right half as a decoder. So this is most popular because it works on first downsampling and then later upsampling in the decoder part. and it improves the resolution of the reconstructed images. The two general approaches are often adopted: post-processing and raw to image. To reconstruct an image, you can either do post-processing, where one needs to estimate the mapping between the initially reconstructed low-quality image and its high-quality counterpart. However, due to limited measurements and the presence of noise, the initially reconstructed image may contain heavy and complex artifacts which are difficult to remove even by deep models. And thus, the deep processing approach has limited performance and is more suitable to handle initial reconstructions that are of relatively high quality. But there are, in post-processing algorithms, there could be multiple noise effects. So we prefer doing raw to image reconstruction, where one directly estimates the reconstruction from the raw data. That is from the projection data of either CT or the case-based data of MRI, and then reconstruct image. However, in this, the challenge is that the data distribution in the domain of raw data is often vastly different from that in the image domain. And this requires tons of training data, and it can be computationally expensive, and this would heavily rely on good initializations of the model parameters. Some of the popular networks that we have used in different image reconstruction is ADMM-net. It is based on iterative method called E alternating direction method of multipliers, and it is used for MR image reconstruction. Then there is primal dual networks that are being used for CT image reconstruction, and then joint spatial radon net, JSR net, that is used to suppress the artifacts induced by incomplete data and noise in CT imaging. So this is an example for reconstructing and segmenting ultrasound images. So as you can see, IQ, this is the raw data. This is how ultrasound raw data looks. For example, your CT raw data looks like a DNA, and ultrasound raw data looks like just dot, 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 dot. So it is passed through an encoder and two decoders, decoder 1 and decoder 2. The first decoder 1 works on B mode reconstruction, and it reconstructs the image. So there was a cyst present inside the image. And the second decoder, decoder 2, segment this cyst, and it gives you the segmentation. So in the bottom row, if you see, A image is the reconstruction image performed using one of the, this is how we want to see it. It is performed using delay and sum algorithm, which is one of the old school method. Then B and C are some methods, some deep neural networks which try to reconstruct this cyst, but they also generated some false positives. So arrows point toward failures in B and C image. So this is why it is very important to fine-tune your deep neural networks, because they can give you failure reconstructions or failure segmentation, as you can see in B and C. But when we improve the training by increasing the number of images, so we got the image D and E, where D, you can see the cyst is reconstructed here, and E, the segmentation is also reconstructed here. So this was done by our own group, and I used around 60,000 samples for this deep neural network training. CNN-based workflows mainly involve 3 steps. One is first raw data, and then process it through CNN, and then you can do an image reconstruction, which could be either CT, MRI, ultrasound, or anything else. Once you have the medical image, the second decoder, CNN2, can use it to perform image analysis, and it can do many tasks such as detection, classification, or segmentation. And then there is, if you combine both the CNNs together, like we have done here, like combining 2 CNNs together, then you can directly use raw data to perform both the tasks together, reconstruction and segmentation. So let us see some more applications and network models. You can use it, deep neural networks, for deeper depth predictions. As you can see here, depth predictions means you are using images to predict 3D depths, and then you can create them in a map. So as you can see in this example, so this is based on a very extensive neural network which involves multiple convolutional layers, ReLU layers, and max pooling layers. This is again the architecture of this network. This is with fully convolutional residual networks. So for this, you give an input image, you pass it through a fully convolutional residual network, then you pass it through a depth order classification. You have to train your model for this. Then you give them several scores to classify the depth at each object is kept. And based on these scores, you can create a depth estimation map, which where raw, for example, here red means the depth is more, blue means depth is less. So this research paper was based on several convolutional layer based architecture, and you can see the architecture is very intensive here. Then we have perspective transformer nets, which learns single view 3D object reconstruction from a learning agent's perspective. In this problem, you can formulate the learning process as an interaction between 3D and 2D representations and propose an encoder-decoder network with the novel projections. The projection laws can enable the unsupervised learning using 2D observation without explicit 3D supervision. What it means is, for example, you have a chair kept in the middle of it, and then you want to take pictures from several angles through with the camera, and then using these angles you train your network, and then you tell the network where this image is kept, where this chair is kept in which position. And then you, from single view, this is called single view 3D object reconstruction. You can use this information to reconstruct the image of the object from one view at the final end. So in this image, they use an encoder and decoder network. From they decrease the size first, called downsampling, and then they upsample to improve the higher resolution. And finally, they had a target projection. So the convolutional layers go from 5 cross 5, 64 by 64 to 32 by 32 to 16 by 16 in, then 8 by 8 in encoder, downsampling, and then in decoder, you increase it, upsampling. 3 by 3, 512 to 256 to 96, and so on. Similarly, image reconstructions are also used for face image reconstruction, and to what extent face templates can be derived from deep networks. You can use several neural networks, a deconvolutional neural network to reconstruct images of faces from the deep templates were used recently. And what they did is they gave an input image and then tried to reconstruct an image and for creating a system to check vulnerability to image reconstruction attacks. They created a fake face and inserted a reconstructed face. So one person, what you are seeing input image, it is shown as the image of another person. This is a fake image, and this part of the research is called deep fake. Deep fake is a very popular technology which is used in several industries, including political agendas. And you can check on Google more about how deep fake are used. So for example, you are giving 3 input images which are of different persons and training the neural network to create changing the face of someone else. So for example, you want to take a picture of your student, and then in a video you want to replace the student's face with Virat Kohli's face. So you can train your network with Virat Kohli's face, and then when your student speaks, instead of his face, you would see Virat Kohli's face. This is called deepfake. You can also use several deep neural networks for 3D object reconstruction from a single image. So for this also you have to train the network. So training is the most important part, and having a good training data. For example, in this, they have used a 3D point cloud to train the network, and using this, they later created a 3D object reconstruction. This was a very, this was called PointOutNet, and it is available for download on internet. And this was a extensive architecture with several encoder and decoder layers. So there are only limited label data available. That is one of the challenge of deep models in medical imaging, and there are limited number of observations. And due to morbidity and privacy concerns, it is generally difficult to gather very large medical data for a specific task. So the question is, can we design learning models and data augmentation techniques to effectively extract knowledge from these limited samples and acknowledge such unequal importance among the samples? And our current deep models hide the reasoning procedure. We do not know what is happening behind the deep neural networks. We do not know the mathematics. We do not know what it is going through, how many parameters are there. So to understand this reasoning is very important. And there is a chance that the model makes accurate predictions based on wrong reasoning, but this makes the model unreliable. So for this, I would suggest you to go for DeepFool. DeepFool is a very good paper. It is named DeepFool paper, and it is very popular. So that was all from here. I will stop sharing here. And in the next session, we will look for more implementation, and I will show you some tutorials on deep neural network creation and how to perform segmentations. That is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manish Bhatt. So it was a very good experience of image reconstruction, and many experiments have also been shown to this. So now in this way we are closing this session, and we will start at 2 o'clock again. So all the participants are requested to join back at 2 o'clock after lunch break for image segmentation and implementation of image reconstruction using deep learning. So thank you very much, Manish sir, for this session.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
And in this way we are closing this session. Thank you very much all the participants also. Please join back at 2 p.m. today